Very peaceful out, very peaceful. You can still hear the cicada, and that means it's really still summer, doesn't it? I was up late last night, a little too late actually, since I had to get up at 6 this morning for classes today. Today's first day back. Ooh, I only had 2 classes today, and I'm bushed. I'm beat. Ah, what a wimp. What a lightweight. Yeah, just not in the routine yet at all. I didn't forget what to do. I just was like, oh. But once I had my second class, I was like ready to teach 3 more. I was ready to go with that first one. And the first class, I won't name names, but they're pretty quiet, pretty slow, pretty quiet. I don't like quiet classes. I like noisy classes. I know some teachers love the silent classes, like silence, that kind of thing. Not me. I like activity. I like back and forth. I like discussion. I like kids talking, raising their hands or whatever, or just saying out. I prefer the just speaking out. They don't raise their hands. They just speak out. I'll say, anybody travel? I came in and said, hello everybody, good morning. Okay, who went somewhere over the summer? All these hands go up. And I said, okay, who went overseas? Who went to another country? And still quite a lot of hands stayed up. I said, no, just shout out where you went. And I heard all these places, Australia, England, UK, Ireland. I heard Ireland. I heard America several times. What was another one I heard? Oh, Singapore, Taiwan. And then I said, okay, what country, those people who traveled to other countries, what country was hotter than Tokyo this summer? And nobody said it. It was quiet as a church. Because Tokyo was boiling this summer. Oh my gosh, it was just, there was really no other place on earth, I think, that was as hot as Tokyo. It's crazy. But here we are at the park, and it is very hot. It's very humid, but it's beautiful. It's a bit hazy, we just had some rain a few minutes ago, but I like it. I'll take it. I'll take it over the cold any day of the week. I love snow, but I'm just not a fan of the cold too much. But yeah, last night, as I started out to say in the beginning here, I stayed up too late. You know how it is. That first day back, you can't get to sleep. You're all keyed up, and you're thinking about, what's it going to be like tomorrow? It's the first day back at school, the first day of school. When you're a student, it's the same thing. When you're a teacher, it's the same thing. Let me tell you, it doesn't change. I was watching just film stuff, filmmaker stuff. And for the first time, I heard Stanley Kubrick's voice. I've never heard him speak. I have books and books and books on Stanley Kubrick. I know all his movies, right? Big fan of his. And I've never heard him speak. I've never actually heard the guy. You know who he sounds like? Because he's American, but people think he's British. He's not. He's American, but he went to Britain to make films, mainly. His most famous films, of course, But he sounds like Peter Sellers in Lolita. The character Peter Sellers plays in Lolita, Claire Quilty. Claire Quilty was the character's name. Sort of this playwright. Yeah, if you listen to his voice in that, he has a particular distinct style of speech. Peter Sellers was. He was so good with voices that he had this particular style of speaking. He would extend certain words and say, yes, I really wish I had a little girl like that back home waiting for me. It's very creepy, and it's great he does this. But Stanley Kubrick sounds like that. So somebody was asking him some questions, so I was watching that, and then I got to David Lynch stuff. And I was watching tons of David Lynch, just clips of him talking. Just I could listen to him all day long. And then just now when I went to the bookshop, Kinokuniya there in downtown there in Kichijoji, over there on the other side, there's apartments, but right around in there is you head toward the station. And there's the bookshop up there, bookstore up there, and I was on the books level. They're the film level. And lo and behold, right there, staring at me, right there, as soon as I walked up, David Lynch, right? David Lynch, Retrospective, the book was called. David Lynch Retrospective. And I just started leaping through it and saw a lot of the photos and images that I had seen last night online, but also I was able to, get a lot of other impressions of him. And I just was like, it really sucks that he's gone. It really sucks, He was such a unique person, such a character, such a singular voice, a singular style, that he really was an artist. He was an artist who made films. He was not, I would not call him a filmmaker or a director. He was an artist who made films. That was the medium he happened to choose at that time of his life. But he was a painter. He did everything. And if you watch some of the videos he made at home before he died, those years after when he stopped making movies, and he was at home, he was always making something. He was always building something. Carving something in his carpentry shop, his painting, doing actual paintings, or sculpting. It's just always doing something creative. And I just thought, wow, this guy was such a great artist. And you look at his films. I got to see Blue Velvet again. I got to watch it again. I'm really in the mood to watch Blue Velvet again after seeing those clips and seeing him talking about it and seeing some stills in the bookstore. I watched Lost Highway over the summer, early part of the, and I think that film is way underappreciated. It didn't do well in the box office. It was regarded as sort of like David Lynch failed. He missed his mark on this one. No way. I think that's a fantastic film. And I'm going to make a prediction here. And I'm going to say that I believe that in a couple of years' time, not long from now, Lost Highway will be suddenly regarded as a masterpiece. It'll be held up on a pedestal as one of David Lynch's greatest films. Most critics didn't like it. Most people didn't like it, according to those reviews. I think it was haunting. I think it was scary as hell. I think it was funny. I think it was completely obtuse and hard to understand in many ways. And I thought it was a work of art. I just thought ask yourself, how many movies have you seen where the main character, the main actor, halfway through the movie is replaced by another totally different looking actor, but it's supposed to be the same person? And there's no explanation given as to why this happened. How many? None. Zero. Lost Highway is the only one where you have Bill Pullman suddenly becomes Balthazar Getty, and with an entirely different life. An entirely different life. Right? No explanation given. So anyway, go and watch Lost Highway, but because I'm going to watch Blue Velvet again. I've got to see Blue Velvet again. And that's, of course, I think that's his masterpiece. I think that's his best. I'm a big fan of Dune. I'm a big fan of his Dune. I started to watch the new Dunes. I know they're great film. As soon as I got through a couple of scenes, I'm like, you know what? No, I'll take David Lynch's any day of the week. And I know he separated himself from them. He basically took his name off it. He Alan Smithied it. He refused to regard it as one of his films. I still think it's definitely a David Lynch film, even with all the butchering they did to it. It's still David Lynch because of the shots and the images he filmed. You can screw around with the film quite a bit with editing, quite a bit, but you can't take away from the compositions and the set design and the acting. You can't take that out, right? With a different edit. You can't. It's in there. That's what you're looking at. That's what you're dealing with. You can rearrange the order of the scenes. You can cut scenes. You can extend scenes with extra footage and all that in the editing room, sure. And that's why he's pissed off, because his film was cut down too much. I understand that. But what we got to see, I still think, is the best Dune, the best depiction of Dune. For me. Anyway, so there's my talk about David Lynch today at the park with the swan boats. And in some weird way, that swan boat reminds me of David Lynch. I don't know why, but it does. Of course, I'm talking about David Lynch, but something about the slowness of it, the serenity of it, it's moving along on the water, they're paddling. I just feel like it belongs in an episode of Twin Peaks or one of his films, or maybe just him talking about it, how we like to talk about transcendental meditation and just, you know, being filled with joy about the wonder that is life. I mean, what was it Ray Bradbury said? I remember him saying, I met him twice. And it wasn't just like, you know, sign this. We had conversations. We were talking about his film twice. Just me and him one time, and another time I was at the presentation he was giving, and I talked to him after. But one time it was just he and I said one of his handlers, because he was quite old, but still, I got to talk to him, and we talked about his films. But he said, he didn't say this to me. This was something he said somewhere, and it was recorded, was taped, and so you can see him saying this. And I think it goes something. Let me see if I don't butcher it. Something like, the whole point of life is to realize or to be in love with the idea of being alive. That's what life's about. Life is about being in love with the idea of being alive. Something like that. I'm sure I'm butchering it. I'm sure I messed it up. But I loved it. I loved this quote, and I got to learn it. Really do. But I just thought, like, you know what? He's absolutely right. That's the point of life, is to be in love with the idea of being alive. And think about that. Let that sit with you. Think about that. So anyway, that's my Springer's moment for today. Jerry Springer. It's Jerry's Springer's moment, whatever that was that he had at the end of every episode. Remember, that horrible show he had, absolutely horrible show, Jerry Springer. And then at the end, he would have some like little redeeming thing where he'd talk about some life lesson or whatever. And I think he had to do that because he was so disgusted with what he was showing that he's like, I gotta wash that off of me. I gotta hose that off of me with something redeeming. So he would come back at the end with some nice bit of life lesson for the rest of us. And I think that's why he did that. I think he said, you know what, I'm going to put this show on, but I'm telling you, producers, you have to give me that 1 minute at the end, Jerry's minute or whatever it was called. But yeah, so this is mine today, my few minutes of that. So part of the ongoing daily walk that I do. Some interesting nature out here. We do get some strange nature calls when nature calls. We do get some strange calls of nature, calls of the wild, because we have a zoo. The Inokashira Park Zoo is right over there. And the birds, particularly the swan and other birds, they let out quite a screeching noise around sunset every day. So it's interesting. It's interesting. But I'm going to leave it there. I don't want to push this too far. This is today's thoughts. Robbie's walkabout. So I walk about. I'm walking back. I'm walking back from the station after school, my first day back, and enjoying the serenity of the park and thinking about David Lynch and what I miss about him and what I miss about his films and how I think he gave us quite a lot. And I think over time we're going to, rather than him fading away like so many other people do who are in the arts, I think he's going to increase in importance as time goes. I think more and more people are going to be attracted to his works, to his words, and to his films as time goes by. That's my prediction. Like I said, the Lost Highway is going to be coming. I didn't know that David Bowie was in, I think, Wild at Heart, right? Either Wild at Heart or Fire Walk with Me. One of those. I think Wild at Heart, but it was cut. They cut the scene. Yeah. How can you cut David Bowie? Wow. That's power. That's power. It's like, you know, it's like back in the 50s, if you cut Brando, like you have Brando when you cut him. Like, how can you cut Brando? I mean, later, when he got fat and he was, you know, Apocalypse Now, you can definitely cut Brando. In fact, Coppola cut Brando quite a lot from the stuff that he actually shot. We got much less Brando than Francis recorded on film. But I watched that over the summer. I'm sorry, not the film, but the Heart of Darkness. I think that's what it's called. His wife made the documentary about the making of Apocalypse Now. That was really enjoyable, that documentary. I really enjoyed that. I know it came out some years ago, and they were talking about it quite a bit, and I missed the boat as usual on that. I never like hook into these things as they happen. You know, I'm always like late to the show. And but they were showing it on TCM, I think, and I caught it, and I enjoyed that. And just watching him talk about the whole French plantation scene as well was interesting too. Beautifully shot, beautifully acted, but totally unnecessary. In fact, it detracted from the film, I thought. Go figure. So we'll leave it there with a redo. I need a redo. 'Cause tomorrow I got classes and Friday I got classes, so I gotta get something to eat. Take a nap maybe. Take care, everybody. Stay safe, stay healthy, keep smiling, and be happy. Be happy. Be in love with the idea of being alive.